Have you ever thought that a quiet dinner could change your life forever? I'm Elena. I'm 42 years old, and I live in Malaga, Spain. During a night in Seville, my husband Miguel made me a proposal that left me cold. He wanted me to get close to his best friend, Carlos, in front of his own eyes. Hi, I'm Elena. I'm 42 years old, and I live in Malaga, a radiant coastal city in Spain, where the golden sun illuminates the cobblestone streets and the sound of the sun mixes with the hustle and bustle of daily life. I have been married to Miguel, 45, for 12 years. Miguel is a reserved man, works in the construction industry, and often has to travel to other cities for work. Our marriage has not always been perfect. We have had our arguments, but with patience and communication, we have overcome the differences. However, I have always felt an emptiness inside, a lack of connection that I can't quite explain. Perhaps, after more than a decade together, the spark of passion between us has faded, leaving only routine and somewhat insipid days. Miguel has a close friend since college, Carlos, 40, a single man who works in event planning. Carlos is the kind of guy who always stands out in any crowd. Tall, with naturally curly black hair, a bright smile, and a piercing gaze. He often comes to our house for dinner, and every time he does, I sense a naturalness and comfort in the way he converses. But I have also noticed that Miguel always talks about Carlos in a special way, as if he admires him more than usual. Carlos has just organized a great event in Madrid. It's really incredible, Miguel said once, with a tone full of pride. I just smiled, but deep down I felt a bit uncomfortable. I didn't understand why Miguel was devoting so much attention to Carlos, and that made me feel a bit overshadowed. It all started at the end of May, when the summer heat in Malaga was starting to get intense. Miguel received an important project in Seville, about 2 hours' drive from Malaga, and he proposed me to accompany him for a change of air. We can stay a few days, walk around the city, and Carlos will also be there. He is organizing a dinner at his house, Miguel said, with enthusiasm in his voice. I accepted, thinking it would be an opportunity to rekindle our relationship and, by the way, get to know Carlos better. That person Miguel was always talking about. I carefully prepared myself for the trip. A long red wine-colored dress that highlighted my fair skin, a pair of nude heels, and a small purse. I pulled my hair up in a high, elegant bun, leaving my slender neck, which Miguel always said he loved, in full view. Before leaving the house, I looked at myself in the mirror, and I felt more confident than ever. Miguel was wearing a white shirt and black pants, looking elegant despite his 45 years. We got into the car and started the drive to Seville, with olive groves stretching out on both sides of the road and the mountains blurring on the horizon. The drive to Seville was quiet. I turned on the radio and a flamenco song began to play, with the vibrant rhythm of a guitar filling the summer air. Miguel was driving. Every now and then he would look at me and smile, but I noticed he seemed a little tense. Are you okay? I asked, putting my hand on his shoulder. Yeah, it's just, I want tonight to be special, Miguel replied, with a somewhat hesitant tone. I didn't think much of it, nodded and continued looking out the window, where small villages passed by with their white houses and red roofs. When we arrived in Seville, the city presented itself with its classic beauty. Narrow cobblestone streets, buildings with wrought iron balconies, and the random aroma wafting through the air. We arrived at Carlos' apartment, a modern place in the center, with large windows overlooking the Plaza de España. Carlos greeted us with a beaming smile. He hugged Miguel tightly before turning to me. Elena, do you look spectacular? He said with a twinkle in his eye. I smiled, feeling my cheeks heat up. Thank you, Carlos. Trying to keep my voice calm, dinner took place in a cozy atmosphere. Carlos had prepared a spectacular table, tapas with hot fried prawns, Iberian ham, and a plate of seafood paella, which gave off an irresistible aroma. He opened a bottle of Rioja red wine and filled our glasses. Let's toast to friendship and unforgettable moments, Carlos said enthusiastically. We clinked glasses. The sound of the glass echoed in the silent space. I took a sip of the wine, feeling its intense flavor on my tongue. But an uneasy feeling began to grow inside me. Miguel and Carlos were chatting animatedly, talking about soccer and work, but I noticed Miguel glancing sideways at me from time to time, too much in the middle. The atmosphere became more relaxed thanks to a couple of glasses of wine. Carlos started telling stories about the events he had organized, from fancy parties in Barcelona to a street festival in Valencia. "You really have talent, Carlos," Miguel said, his tone full of admiration. I smiled, but deep down I felt a twinge of discomfort. Why was Miguel always praising Carlos so much? I wondered, trying to push away the feeling of jealousy that was beginning to creep in. Then Carlos turned to me with a twinkle in his eye. "And you, Elena? Miguel always says you're an amazing woman, but he never mentioned how charming you are." In a warm, deep voice. I felt my face light up, not knowing how to respond. "Thank you. I'm just a normal person," I said, trying to sound natural. Miguel let out a laugh and put his hand on my shoulder. "Don't be so modest, Helena. You're the most beautiful woman I've ever met." But in his voice I sensed a strange tension. The atmosphere changed when Carlos proposed a little game. "Let's play a game of sincerity," he said with an intense smile. "Each one will reveal a secret or a wish he or she has never shared with the others. Whoever doesn't dare will have to owe all this glass of wine." I smiled, thinking it would be a harmless game. Carlos began, confessing that he once turned down a job offer in Paris because he didn't want to leave Spain. When it was my turn, I admitted that I had always dreamed of learning to dance flamenco, but never had the courage. Both men clapped, cheering me on, and I felt the mood lighten. But when it was Miguel's turn, he was silent for a moment, looking at me with an intensity that made me uneasy. "All right," he said, lowering his voice. "I'm going to be honest. I've always had a desire, a fantasy that I've never shared with anyone, not even you, Elena." I felt my heart beat faster, not understanding why I felt so nervous. "What fantasy?" I asked with a trembling voice. Miguel took a deep breath and looked me in the eyes. "I want to see you, to bring you closer to Carlos in front of me," in a low but clear voice. Time seemed to stop. I felt the blood rush to my head. My ears were falling and the glass of wine I was holding. "What did you just say?" I asked, my voice breaking, unable to believe what I had heard. Carlos was also stunned. His gaze went from me to Miguel. "Miguel, are you serious?" Carlos asked with a tone of surprise. Miguel nodded, without taking his eyes off me. "I'm serious, Elena. I've thought about it for a long time. I want to see you. With Carlos. I think that would bring us closer," she said, her voice trembling but determined. A burning fury flared up inside me, mixed with deep confusion. "Are you crazy, Miguel?" I shouted, jumping up from my chair. "Who do you think I am? An object for you to experiment with your fantasies?" I turned to Carlos, my eyes full of rage. "And you, Carlos, you knew about this before, didn't you?" Carlos shook his head, raising his hands as if to defend himself. "No, Elena, I swear I didn't know anything. I'm as surprised as you are," he said with a sincere tone. I looked at Miguel again, feeling my heart clench. "Why, Miguel? Why are you doing this to me?" I asked, my voice cracking. Miguel looked down, unable to hold my gaze. "I thought this might bring something new to our relationship. I feel we have become too predictable, too boring. I wanted to see you more alive, Helena," he said, his voice getting lower and lower. A storm of conventions raged inside me, anger, pain, and a curiosity I dared not admit. I looked at Carlos, who was still sitting, with an expression of concern, but also with a gentleness that was hard to ignore. I couldn't deny that Carlos was very attractive, and for an instant, I imagined what Miguel had proposed. But then, memories of our 12 years of marriage flooded my mind. The early days of our love, the fights and reconciliations, the simple moments sharing a dinner or watching a movie. I could not allow a moment of weakness to destroy everything. "No," I said in a firm voice. "I am not part of your game, Miguel. I am your wife, not a tool for you to satisfy your fantasies." I turned to Carlos, softening my gaze. "Thank you, Carlos, for not being complicit in this. I think I should go." I grabbed my bag and walked quickly to the door, ignoring Miguel's shouts. "Elena, wait. I'm sorry." I left Carlos' house and walked through the deserted streets of Seville, feeling the coolness of the May night. I hailed a cab and returned to the hotel where we were staying. In the small room, I sat on the bed, covering my face with my hands as I cried inconsolably. I felt betrayed, not only by Miguel's proposal, but by his lack of honesty. He had never told me about his feelings, about his perception that our marriage had lost its life. Instead, he decided to put me in a situation I never wanted. The next morning, Miguel returned to the hotel with eyes full of regret. "Elena, I'm sorry," he said, his voice hoarse. "I don't know what I was thinking. I just wanted us to feel something new again, but I was wrong. I never meant to hurt you." I looked at him, still feeling the pain in my chest, but I also realized I couldn't let this completely destroy our marriage. "Miguel," I laughed so hard. I said, my voice cracking, "but if you really want to save this relationship, we need to be honest with each other. You have to tell me how you feel instead of putting me in a situation like that." Miguel nodded, his eyes red-rimmed. "I promise, Elena. I'll never do something so stupid again. I love you and I don't want to lose you." His voice trembled. I sighed, feeling that a part of me was still hurt, but I also wanted to give us a chance. "We need time, Miguel, and we need to talk more, really listen to each other," I said in a softer tone. In the weeks that followed, Miguel and I began attending couples therapy sessions. We learned to share our emotions, to listen to each other, and to reconnect in a way we had lost. I realized that it was a lack of communication that led Miguel to make that wrong decision. Although the wound was still there, I felt that little by little, we were rebuilding trust. As for Carlos, he called me to apologize, and I knew he had no bad intentions. I decided to keep my distance from him, not because I was angry, but because I wanted to protect my marriage. This story taught me that, in a relationship, honesty and communication are the most important things. If Miguel had shared his feelings with me from the beginning, we might not have gone through this pain. I also learned that even if there are temptations or fantasies, the most important thing is to respect each other's boundaries and protect what we value. What do you think of my story? Have you ever faced a situation where a lack of communication has caused a misunderstanding in your relationship? If you were in my shoes, would you forgive Miguel or choose another path? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to read them to better understand my own emotions. If this story touched you, don't forget to leave a heart, a like, and subscribe to the Adultery Registry channel right now, so you don't miss out on more stories full of emotion. We'll be back soon with new secrets you won't want to miss.